Good evening. My name is Ashok Kamath, and I'm the Honorary Secretary of the IIT Alumni Center in Bengaluru, IITACB for short. Many of you have been attending our weekly webinars, which have spanned different topics, from some of them on the COVID-19, which we are all experiencing, to setting up of the IITs. And today is an exceptional topic as well. The first few IITs are clearly over 50 years old, the first five. And, they've all celebrated their, golden and some of them platinum jubilees. After that, I think it was IIT Guwahati, which is now 25 years old. And subsequent to that, we had, multiple IITs that were set up in approximately the 10 to 12 year window, 12 years ago. And most, notable one among them is IIT in Gandhinagar, which founder director Sudhir Jain is our speaker today. I think it takes a lot to build a new IIT. It's not just about setting up a campus, it's about setting up a complete vision for the campus and for the IIT, and knowing fully well that brand IIT out there has got a lot of value, and you have to uphold the value of brand IIT as well simultaneously. So Sudhir Jain did his master's and PhD from Caltech. Was on the faculty of IIT Kanpur for a very long time, I think 30 years, before he started and became the founder director of IIT Gandhinagar. Probably one of the only ones who's been given a third term as director of Gandhinagar. Academically, he's an internationally well-known scholar on earthquake engineering. But I think at heart, he's a very passionate academic administrator. And that's what has made Gandhinagar what it is today. For all his accomplishments and contributions, he was awarded the Padma Shri by the Government of India this year in 2020. Moderating this conversation today is Professor P.D. Jose, Professor of Strategy and Chairperson of the Strategy area at IIM Bangalore. Interestingly, Professor Jose also chairs IIMBX, which is IIM Bangalore's digital learning initiatives. The MOOCs that you all hear of is chaired by Professor Jose. He's a fellow of the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad. Worked at ASCII in Hyderabad. Was a Fulbright fellow at MIT. And has also taught at the Cardiff Business School in England, and is on the visiting faculty at the Gothenburg Business School in Sweden. The topic today is educational innovations for a post-COVID-19 world. We all know from primary schools to higher education, everyone's struggling to find answers as to how education can be run in a post-COVID world with all its constraints. Specifically, I think with this issue of distancing and not being allowed to be in the same classroom in strength is going to put a dampener on a lot of the efforts, and we need innovations coming here. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Professor Sudhir Jain to talk to us about educational innovation for a post-COVID-19 world. A couple of small things is, number one is that there is a chat box at the bottom. If you have questions, please do not put it out there. Put it in the Q&A box, which is on the right side of your screen. We will be constantly monitoring the Q&A box. Anything that comes in chat, the chances of it being answered will be, almost zero. So please don't put questions there, put it in the Q&A box. Please do not ask us for certificates. You can't possibly get a certificate from an IIT with a 1 hour listening to a lecture. So It's a little harder than that. So you're not going to get that. And I would also be remiss if I don't introduce my colleagues, Dr. Sushila Venkatraman, whom you see on the screen. Sushila is my colleague at the IIT Alumni Center, Bengaluru, and she will join the moderating team for this day. Over to you, Professor Jain.
Thank you, Ashok. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Must start by thanking IIT Alumni Center, Bangalore, for organizing this opportunity for me to share my thoughts. Particularly thankful to Ashok, Kamath, Sushila Venkatraman, Professor P.D. Jose for participating in this and in organizing this. When I was asked to think about a topic for speaking on this webinar, I thought it would be interesting to share about IIT Gandhinagar, how it has emerged, how it has functioned, how it handled the COVID 2019, and where does it go? Where do we see the future? Where are the opportunities that we see? As Ashok said, we are a new IIT. We were started in 2008, and we said to ourselves that it will be a unfair use of the taxpayers' money if we were to try to become like an older IIT. We felt that just as any father wishes the son to do better, we felt that the older IITs would like newer IITs to do better, to learn from their mistakes, to learn from their successes, to use their resources, and to do things that would be difficult to do in an older IIT, things that will be difficult to do in a bigger institution. So that is how we try to configure IIT Gandhinagar. That is how we try to build the vision and the culture of IIT Gandhinagar. And I'll give you some glimpses of that, some sense of that. And from there will emerge how we handle the COVID 2019. And from there will emerge what I see or what we see as future of the educational innovations in the years ahead. So let me just share with you my screen, and basically the three parts: the foundation blocks of excellence, what we are, who we are. We might take a little break with question answers from Professor P.D. Jose at that point. Then we'll continue on rising to the crisis, the discussion about how we handle the crisis, and third, the new educational paradigm. We started 2008 with 90 students. We have about 1,700 students now. 44% are undergraduates, 56% are postgraduates. Out of 1,700 students, 25% are PhD students. The standard undergraduate programs: chemical, civil, computer science, electrical, materials, mechanical. We created 7 interdisciplinary centers, and these are quite unique in some sense. Center for Safety Engineering, hardly any IIT would have serious interests, perhaps. The Archaeological Sciences Center, the Center for Cognitive Science, things like that. So we try to do something interesting in the interdisciplinary areas, and I'll come back to that a little bit more. We have the master's and PhD programs in many more areas than what I showed you for undergraduate programs. Our postgraduate student body, 90% of them are from outside the state. We have students from 29 states, and almost 1/3 of our master's and PhD students are women. We started to think about building the institute on certain premises, and these are listed here. The students first. That is a slogan that my colleagues, my students hear from me very often. And I think this is something that our students very proudly say, that IIT Gandhinagar believes in students first. Every decision that we take must look into how it affects the students, how it benefits the students. The quality faculty. We were very slow in recruiting faculty. We still are very slow in recruiting faculty, because we think that faculty has to be the backbone of an institution, and therefore you cannot compromise with the quality of the faculty. Interdisciplinarity is something that, again, I'll talk to you in a little bit more detail later. Critical thinking and liberal arts is a very important agenda for us in our educational program. Project-oriented learning, internationalization, I'll again talk about it a little bit, and social engagement, and I'll expand on that as we go along. So when we are designing our curriculum, we said that there is a constant complaint that the students get burnt out with JEE coaching before they come to the IITs. And we said that's not a satisfactory situation. We need to de-stress them. We need to detoxify them from JEE coaching type of an environment where they have stopped reading any non-curricular books, where they have stopped playing chess or reading novels or playing badminton. So we started this new curriculum in 2011, where we said that the new undergraduate students will go through 5 weeks of foundation program, a full day activity starting from 6:30 in the morning at the playground, going up to 10 o'clock in the night. We run a 5-week foundation program, which focuses on 5 pillars: creativity, ethics, physical fitness, communication skills, social engagement. And the idea is to detoxify the students, make them realize that life is much more than getting grades and marks, and show them that there is a lot more to life than just studies. This has been a very transformative experience for the students. And after a few years, several of the IITs started to adopt it. Many IITs now do a 3-week foundation program equivalent. Many engineering colleges do it. In fact, the ICT sometime back issued an advisory to engineering colleges that they should do something similar. So we are very proud of this program. It has gone extremely well. Our students are really very, very upbeat about what this program does to them. In terms of pedagogy, we are very upbeat on humanities and social science type courses in the engineering curriculum to encourage critical thinking, creativity. We were the first IIT to start a compulsory course on design and innovation in a BTech program. We were the first IIT to start a life sciences course as a compulsory course in the BTech program. And we thought these are the things that will give a special advantage to our graduates. We also very strongly commit ourselves to globalization and diversity. Almost 40% of our undergraduate students, BTech students, would travel outside India at least once during the 4 years before they graduate from us. They do summer research internships in universities abroad or attend meetings and conferences. 30% of our PhD students spend at least a semester outside India in a laboratory or a university. Outside, almost 75% of our students would have traveled overseas with some conference assignment and things like that. So idea is that our students must get a sense of where the world is and how we in India must compete with the rest of the world and learn from diverse sources, diverse environments. As I said earlier, 90% of our students are from outside Gujarat, 34% of our students are women, and we are very proud of that. Some 3 years back, we started this program, Invent at IIT Gandhinagar, which is open to students of all IITs. And over 6 weeks' time, the students develop an innovation, prototype it, pitch it, write it, file a US patent application. And this is a program that started originally in the United States. And in the photo here, in the picture here, you see these 2 professors. They are 2 professors from a university in New York, Cooper Union, and they brought this program to us. They taught this program for 2 summers here. And this year, of course, we had to cancel the program because of the COVID-19, but we expect that this program will continue, makes a big difference to the students. Some years back, we started a fellowship. We called it Explorer Fellowship, where we said that our students must travel the length and breadth of India on a very, very low budget, like a very ordinary Indian would travel, like a very ordinary Indian would eat or sleep. We give them 38,000 rupees over 42 days, on an average 900 rupees a day, to cover their train tickets, their food, their stay in the dharamshala or lodging, their sightseeing. No air travel allowed, no air conditioned train allowed. They must travel at least North India, South India, Northeast India. Typically, they cover 12 states, 13 states, 14 states. in the summer months when it is very hot. The idea is that our students must rub shoulders with the common Indians and understand what India is all about. This has been a very transformative experience, and this is entirely voluntary. Almost 40% of our students, undergraduates, do this program after first year summer, during the first year summer. And we have been getting very, very good feedback in terms of how transformative it has been, how maturing experience it has been, and how sobering experience it has been for the students to understand how privileged they have been, how the taxpayers' money has really been instrumental in their education. Interdisciplinarity is one of the central pillars of IIT Gandhinagar's thinking. And we decided that rather than paying a lip service to interdisciplinarity, we would hardwire it into our academic infrastructure. We would design our buildings, we would design our laboratories and things which are not around disciplines. So there is no mechanical engineering building, there is no physics building, there is no floor for mechanical engineering. So a professor of mechanical engineering could be sitting next to somebody who teaches English literature, who could be sitting next to somebody who is in mathematics. And same thing happens with the PhD students. Same thing happens with the laboratories. The chemical engineering laboratory could be next to electrical engineering laboratory, and so on and so forth. We also started two very successful interdisciplinary programs, one in cognitive science, one in Master of Arts in Society and Culture, where any graduate in any discipline can apply. We have had medical doctors, for example, do Master of Science in Cognitive Science. You could be a graduate of any discipline to be able to apply to any of these two programs. Just to give a sense to the outcome of our strong commitment to interdisciplinarity, 10% of our faculty members have appointments in more than one discipline. What it means is that somebody is an assistant professor in electrical engineering and also an assistant professor in mechanical engineering. 14% of our PhD students have PhD advisor, thesis supervisor outside the discipline. What it means is that the student of mechanical engineering who is going to get a degree in PhD in mechanical engineering has a supervisor from electrical engineering and no supervisor from mechanical. 13% of our publications would have multidisciplinary authors, 16% of our projects would have multidisciplinary investigators. So that is the outcome of our strong commitment to interdisciplinary. We believe that a lot more innovations will emerge when people start to work across the disciplines, and this is the focus area for that. We, as I said earlier, the faculty is the backbone of any university, and we have been very, very cautious in recruiting faculty. Just to give a sense of the quality, we have 60% of our faculty have PhDs from overseas. We have the graduates of the best universities you can think about, the Cambridge, Harvard, MIT, Urbana-Champaign, Cornell, Georgia Tech, and so on and so forth. 85% of our faculty would have experience abroad. So even if they have done PhD in India, they would have traveled abroad for postdoctoral work, and so on and so forth. 15% of our faculty would be visiting faculty from India, from abroad, and 5% of our faculty are full-time, international, non-Indian origin faculty. And we are trying to build that number further. We think that we should have at any given time about 15% at least of our faculty who are not of Indian origin. So that's how we think that we would like to be fairly global in our outlook. The result of all of these is that 38% of our undergraduate students go for higher studies, 8% of our undergraduates do PhDs, and 7% of our undergraduates would have done entrepreneurship for a substantial amount of time. Some of them succeed, some of them fail. After trying 2-3 years, they may go into a job with another company, but they would have learned very, very valuable lessons as entrepreneurship experience. The social engagement has been a very important agenda for us for two reasons. One is that it's the right thing to do. We are paid by the taxpayers, and we must show sensitivity towards the most underprivileged sections of our society. But I think more important is that our students must become sensitive graduates. Wherever they go, they must not forget their responsibilities towards the society. And therefore, in 2011, we had a policy on community outreach approved by our Board of Governors. we provide very strong commitment to construction workers' welfare. We have very strong clauses in our contracts to make sure that all construction workers are living in a very healthy and satisfactory environment. This is, for example, the type of housing that our construction workers are provided. This is a picture when the piped gas, the CNG gas was not yet provided, and these houses would have the piped gas connection for the workers to cook food. The There are several schemes we have developed for the contract staff, whether it is the housekeeping staff, the security staff, the mess workers. We have a NYASA. NYASA is a student initiative that works for the children of the construction workers. So they run a little school. This is a little school, informal school that is run right in the middle of the academic area, right in the center of the classrooms of IIT Gandhinagar, where the construction workers' children are taught. And this lady teacher, she is hired, and her service conditions are managed by undergraduate students. This whole initiative is run by undergraduate students. They take great ownership. They take great pride in working with these kids, develop a lot of affection for them. In fact, this is a picture of the annual birthday celebration that the undergraduate students do with the kids of the construction workers. What you see here, these are our students. And the idea here is that these kids don't know when their birthday is. And once in a year, a lot of celebration happens. And it is assumed that everybody's birthday is on that day. That is how the undergraduates engage with them. There is another initiative, NEEV, which is to provide entrepreneurship training at grassroots level. Idea is that the neighboring villages, they must feel certain prosperity as a result of the existence of IIT Gandhinagar. And this initiative is about giving them skills, giving them entrepreneurship training, so that the people in the village at the bottom of the pyramid, they could start to earn some money. As I mentioned to you, the foundation program, 5-week foundation program that we run for our undergraduates is having 5 pillars. One of those is social engagement. We have courses on, related areas. So this is, for example, the training for stitching. In fact, NEEV had trained a fairly large number of women in stitching in the 2 neighboring villages. And when the lockdown happened, they actually gave out a lot of work to these women for making cloth masks at their own home. So these women in the villages, they could work as per their own convenience for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours a day, make face masks, which community would buy. In fact, in some cases, the corporates have bought the face masks made by these women. So this generates some sort of a employment, some sort of a income for these women, and the community is served well because they are able to get a high quality masks prepared as per our specifications. This is a training program for the young boys from the neighboring villages that is happening inside our laboratory. In summer months, the laboratory is available, and we run this program where they may go through an electrician's course or a plumber's course or a carpenter's course and get some skills. We don't give them certificates. We don't certify them. Idea is to give them some really good skills and some entrepreneurship mindset so that they can become self-employed or possibly get a good job somewhere else. Basically, we have had global ambitions, and our idea is to do things as if we are a globally ranked, top-ranked university. So build a culture, build a system for everything that we do, whether it is curriculum, whether it is faculty recruitment, whether it is infrastructure, policies, personnel, ethos, and culture. We have been ranked well over the years, although that has not been our high priority. The entire thing at IIT Gandhinagar works on the principle that the government of India has been very generous in giving grants, and those grants are good for paying the bills, paying the electricity, paying the salaries. But for excellence, we must seek philanthropic money. And we are very proud of the fact that even though we are a new institute, even though our alumni are very, very young and don't have much capacity to give money, we have been able to generate a fairly high amount of uh, philanthropic money. For example, 2019-20, we closed with raising about 20% of the annual operating budget. What I mean is, the money that we raised is about 20% of the budget, not that that money was spent on operating expenses. As I said, operating expenses are run with the government money. Most of this 20% money would be perhaps in the endowment whose interest will be used. And this money is used really for driving the excellence. This money is used for hiring the best faculty, giving them extraordinary support, giving our students extraordinary support. That is how we are able to send so many students overseas. That is how we are able to run these explorer fellowships and so many other things. But while we raise this money from various well-wishers, we are also conscious that typically the universities raise money from their alumni. And although our alumni are not in a position to give a significant amount of money, but we are trying to build that as a base for future. 2019-20, 50% of our alumni, undergraduates, postgraduates, all the alumni, if you take the total number, more than 50% of them made a financial contribution to IIT Gandhinagar as a gift. And that, I would say, is a record of some sort. I would not imagine any institution in India would have, or perhaps even worldwide, would have that kind of a ratio so easily. In fact, some of the young alumni, as I said, we have very young alumni. The first students that graduated was in 2012. So these young students have in fact started to endow scholarships in the name of their parents, in the name of their grandparents. And we think we are building a good pipeline for the alumni to scale up their contributions and their engagement with the institution in the years ahead. We have built a campus. We have a 400-acre land with 3 kilometers of riverfront of Sabarmati. We have received many, many awards for building this campus. We are just about 30 minutes from the airport, Ahmedabad airport. What you see on the right-hand side is the Sabarmati River, and the water you see in the river is the real water, not the Photoshop water. What you see here is the academic area, and the farther end you see the hostel area. If I show you the other picture here, this is the academic area. The hostels are here, and the faculty and staff housing is here. And let me just show you a little bit more. These are the academic buildings. See the natural light. We designed it to minimize the energy consumption. These are the sources for natural light. And there are these shafts so that when on the ground floor, during the daytime, you don't need artificial light. We also were very conscious that every element in the campus is designed in an interesting way. If you see the staircase and you see the bottom side of it, it is some beautiful geometry. And the idea is that people walk around the campus, they see these staircases, and bottom of these staircases is always something that people don't pay much attention to. And we thought even that should be very interesting as we design. One of the key ideas in designing our campus was that while we focus on the buildings, we should focus even more on what happens outside the building. The area outside the building, how it will be landscaped, how it will be used, and is there a use for the space? Because this is a very precious space, and we must account for that. And for example, this is the academic area. This is the social space, for example, where there is a gathering. You can see a lot of sitting spaces here. People are sitting across informally, talking to each other and whatever. This is a little structure to celebrate the Gujarat's culture of kite flying, but it also acts as a shading device, provides some shade during the hot season. The temperature reduces a little bit because of the shading that the structure does. The auditorium, the kind of furniture of this auditorium, we have done numerous iterations of prototyping and designing of this furniture just to make it very, very comfortable for somebody to sit the whole day. So we have paid a lot of attention to details when we designed and built our campus. This is the hostel area. one of the things that we worked with architects was that all our buildings, all our facilities, whether it's the hostels, the housing, the academic area, they must encourage interaction between people. They must make people meet each other, greet each other. And that is how the academic area is designed. That is how the hostels are designed. So here you see in the hostel, this area is called Panchayat Chowk. That is where 500 students can get together. They can hold a meeting. There have been times when my dean or I will go there, stand here with a microphone, and there will be hundreds of students that will sit around here, and we will talk. We will discuss things that are of concern to them. What you see in front here is a street. We said we want to create old Indian town rather than creating a modern city, which is very impersonal, where neighbors don't know each other. We wanted to create old Indian city, old Indian town type environment. So what you see at the end of this street is a dining hall. That is where the food is. And these are the hostels where students live. And as they walk on the street 4 times a day for 4 meals, they bump into each other, they meet each other. And as they walk, there are little shops here, some chai shop there, some juice shop somewhere, things like that. This is the housing area. Again, what I said earlier about the hostel, same thing holds for the housing, again, designed to keep interactions possible and keep track of the open areas, the spaces that are outside the building should be utilized. The green campus, the landscaping, this is, for example, the open area. This is a picture that I will talk to you later. Again, this is a social space that somebody could use for whatever purposes they like. It's a semi-formal, informal type of a space that has been created. There is a festival here. There's a party going on around Dashera. That is a well-known time for celebrations in Gujarat. So this is what we call as a Jal Mandap. Gujarat has a tradition of rainwater harvesting for hundreds of years, and we thought we must do that in this campus. So all the rooftop water comes in the underground water tank here. From here, it gets pumped into the water service station, where it is processed and used for drinking. But to celebrate water, we thought we will create a little recreational area here. The kids can run around, the elderly. You will see in the evenings, elderly sitting here, the women and the children relaxing here. So there are several of these Jal Mandaps that we have designed just to create social spaces in the campus. This is a amphitheater that we built. We have a very undulating topography, and we had a natural topography to take advantage of in building a amphitheater. This is our entrance gate, and this is a boundary wall. We are very proud of this boundary wall because we said to ourselves that any visitor gets introduced to the institute, first thing they see is the boundary wall. Before they even enter into the campus, they see the boundary wall. And what is the boundary wall speaking to a visitor? And we said to ourselves that we want a boundary wall that is also very transparent, that shows that we are open to business, that shows that you are welcome to come inside, that is welcoming you. So this is, for example, and we said boundary wall will be built later. We were not in a hurry to build the boundary wall because we wanted to design it very, very carefully. This is a research park, 2 lakh square feet of research park that would have been commissioned by now, but for the COVID, we are almost there. Needs a few months of work. When the labor comes back, this will be finished. We already have about 8 or 10 companies that we have given temporary space in the academic area. But when this 2 lakh square foot buildings are ready, we would have very active research park spaces. For example, the NESCOM has a center in IIT Gandhinagar, and you have given them temporary space on the floor right below the floor on which my office is. And once this building is commissioned, the NESCOM will move into this building. So this is what is the campus like. I would take a little break here and have Professor Jose come in and see if you would like to ask some clarifications, some questions before I move on to the next part of my presentation. Thank you.
So Professor Jain, thank you for this part of the presentation. And I know you are not watching the chat, but people are very effusive in their compliments. on the campus. It's a beautiful campus, it's innovative, and I wish I could live there. But anyway, that may be something that we can do. Given that some of our participants are quite interested in moving on to the post-COVID scenario, I want to limit this to 2 or 3 questions only. And one question that really intrigues me is the fact that you mentioned about philanthropy and alumni giving. It's quite interesting that you have 20% of your annual operating budget coming from philanthropy and student giving. This never really happens in most other institutions. Certainly not in Indian institutions. So what is that magic wand that you wave that people are so willing to open up their bank accounts and donate to the institute?
see, just what is happening is that uh, there are a lot of people who would like Indian universities to do well. And many of them understand that Indian universities will do well only uh, with engagement of everybody. It cannot happen in isolation. My slogan at IIT Gandhinagar is that IIT Gandhinagar, nobody owns IIT Gandhinagar, everybody owns IIT Gandhinagar, right? Uh, so people like to contribute. People would like to step in and say, okay, can I come and contribute to your college? Maybe with time, maybe with money, maybe with ideas. And most of our universities tend to close themselves. They don't welcome outsiders because they think outsiders are, headaches. They ask uncomfortable questions. They interrupt things. They raise unnecessary issues. And we said, no, that is not on. We need to engage with the society. We need to engage with everyone. And very early 2009, I was able to persuade some well-wishers that we at IIT Gandhinagar would create a totally new paradigm of educational governance, and I need your help. And they started to put in some money, using which we were able to attract faculty, good faculty. We started to support our students, and that pumped the prime, that primed the pump. That is how we started actually. And slowly more and more people came forward and started to contribute. They found that we were very responsive, we were very transparent in terms of money utilization, in terms of giving the accounts, maintaining the accounts, and so on and so forth. And as our students started to graduate, while they were benefiting from these donations, they were also primed automatically. They knew, the student knows that if he's going to Caltech and doing summer internship, somebody is paying for it. And
so I'm just curious, just to speed up this discussion. So very quickly, did you ever have the need to reject some philanthropic giving because the values of the institute and the giver did not match, or the organization?
Yep, we have had situations where we had to negotiate very hard because somebody was giving us money with certain conditions, and we knew that those conditions will not achieve the objectives for which the money was being given. And we said, this is not going to work. And the gentleman was very unhappy with us. He said, look, other institutions are willing to accept those conditions. Why not you? I said, you give it to those institutions. We don't want your money to be with us and we fail. Eventually, he came and gave us the money. And today, he's one of our strongest supporters. So whenever we have a situation where somebody wants to give us money, which doesn't meet with our values, we would not accept it. But before we reject it, we will try to work with the donor and explain to them why we need certain adjustment in their way of giving money.
Great. The other thing I wanted to ask you, and I think this is also related to what people are also thinking about, is this great social engagement you seem to have built up with the community around, and also the Explorer program that you created, which sends students out. And these are both very fascinating models. And of course, the third element was the innovation that you promote within students. So very briefly, if you could tell us how these ideas, originated, and more importantly, what can other institutions do to have similar policies?
See, the way I see it is a typical faculty member in a typical institution, university in India, doesn't think that social engagement is the university's responsibility. They think that it is your private business to worry about the poor people. I disagree with that. I think that universities are the place where our students learn the values, and they would only learn the values about social engagement if the university has a strong commitment to those values, right? If the university is practicing those values. And therefore, what became very important for us was to practice these social issues in a very, very aggressive manner. And some of those things I will talk to you in the second part of my presentation. The idea is that if the guy who is serving food or making food in the mess, even if he or she is working for the contractor, if I cannot look after him, if he has a medical emergency, if he has his child who is not able to go to school, there is some problem. I must look after that person, even if that person is working through the contract. And we started from there very early, 2010, we created funds for educational reimbursement for all contractors workers. Anybody who is working at the chai shop inside the campus, if their child is going to school, we will give them 10,000 rupees per child per year as a scholarship money. Whether you are working for the housekeeping agency, you are working for security agency, for mess workers, for a little chai shop, anybody working or associating with the institute, we will give them money for the children's education. Similarly, if this guy working in the mess or in the security, if he goes through a medical emergency, we have all the legal provisions, we have ESI and we have everything. But when the chips are down, this person will go to the next available nursing home and spend 10,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees bill, and he may really go under debt. So we created special funds in IIT Gandhinagar's endowment, and we said, whenever there are emergencies, we will look after our people. So these are...
this is really interesting. I'm sorry to interrupt because I know that we have a long agenda ahead of us, but this is really interesting you mentioned this, because I think there is a lot of impression that IITs are ivory towers, IIMs are ivory towers, and we are completely disconnected from the rest of India. And I think what you have demonstrated, both on the campus, in engaging with the community, as well as sending your students out, is that they can be very tightly integrated. And we can have a set of students who are aware of the real problems of India.
Absolutely.
One of which is innovation, really. And that's a question that was also raised. And maybe that's the last question I will ask you before we move on to the next part. There is a question from one of the attendees today about how do you encourage innovation within the student community as well as among the faculty? You did mention about one of those policies, but anything else you would like to share?
We do innovation in two ways, right? One is that we would firstly have an innovative mindset to solve problems. We will never tell, nobody in IIT Gandhinagar has ever heard administration say that this is not allowed as per government rules. This is not allowed by IITs. This is not allowed by this or that. We don't do that. We will say if there is merit in it, we will find a way to do it. If something is needed, something is good for the institution, we will do it. If a student needs help, we will never say no to him. So I think it starts from there. People see that we find solutions to the problems that are there. And we engage students, engage the faculty. It's a very, participative culture that we have built where, for example, when the students come on day one, I tell them and their parents that I'll treat you as adults. I'll hold you accountable. I'll give you all the freedom, but I'll hold you accountable. And I tell student leaders that all this freedom that you have, autonomy you have, and they know that this autonomy is much more than what they see with their counterparts elsewhere. I say this autonomy is there with you as long as you're responsibly handling it. Because if you start to become like union leaders and Jindabad, Murdabad type netas, this autonomy will reduce. And as a result, I see very, very strong commitment of the student leadership or the faculty in finding solutions. What is innovation? Innovation is about finding solutions.
So I want us to proceed because I think, I know you have a lot of area to cover. There are a few more questions, but I will come back to you after we do the next part.
Sure.
Thank you.
Right. So, so here we are. Comes March and we have the crisis. It is clear that we have a big problem. And one of the first things we did was we gave the students option to stay in the campus or to leave. And that was a somewhat unusual decision. but this was done after very careful thought, after careful discussion with the faculty leadership, student leadership. And we addressed the students and we said, look, if you want to stay home, stay in the campus, you are welcome to stay. If you want to leave for home, you are welcome to leave. We will facilitate both ways. 25% of our students chose to stay in the campus, and we organized that all the mess workers, we provided extra incentives for them to move into the campus, all the essential staff, the water, sewage, electrical supply people, we moved them into the campus with extra financial incentives, with proper accommodations to make sure that the campus would run appropriately. Our thought was that students should be, because we said students are adults, that is what is our motto. So we said the students should decide where they want to be. And that was, I think, one of the very key, very important decisions that we took at that time, which we are very happy about. Once it became clear that students will be away from classes, we created a project Isaac for Isaac Newton. There was a story that came in a newspaper which said that Isaac Newton also had to stay home for more than a year during a plague in London. And therefore, he did a lot of creative work while he was quarantined at home. And we created a number of initiatives for the students to engage with depending on their interests. There is a leadership challenge, there is a programming challenge, there is a Sanskrit contest, there is a visual story challenge, there are innovation awards, number of things. Idea was that you want the students' minds to be diverted into creative activities rather than worrying about the health crisis. We had to decide about the academic programs. Unlike many other institutions which said to their faculty to start online classes in March, we said, no, that may not work because the faculty, universities are not very good with jerky motion. The faculty and the students, they don't feel comfortable when you throw surprises at them. So we said, it will be a tough task to start online classes. Let's not do that. We advanced the summer vacation. So April, May was our summer vacation. And we said, let's experiment with 8 online courses. Let's just have 8 faculty members teach online courses in the summer elective courses and let them gain some experience. Let the students get a feel. And we use those 8 faculty members to do training for the rest of the faculty during the summer for online teaching. We beefed up the hardware, the software, the infrastructure, and we started our remaining part of the spring semester, the second half of the spring semester, on June 8 in online mode. So the idea was that the remaining classes will be done, but they will be done from June 8, and by the time we would be better prepared, our faculty will be better prepared. In the meantime, we were able to also reach out to the students, understand how many of them have challenges with the internet or with the devices. We also did something very, very interesting at the time. When the crisis happened, we quickly provided a new provision that students can credit certain MOOCs courses, the courses that are there on NPTEL or Coursera. We said if they learn those courses, up to so many credits will be transferred and counted in their graduation requirement. We curated 180 MOOCs courses, about half of them undergraduate courses, half of them postgraduate courses. And we assigned them equivalent IIT Gandhinagar credits so that it is transparent. We told the students, here is a list of 180 courses. Here is the equivalent credit for IIT Gandhinagar system. If you learn this course, pass this course, bring a certificate, we will transfer those credits to your credit card. And you're very excited to see the results. As of today, 64% of our entire undergraduate body has done one or more MOOCs courses. 36% of our master's students have done one or more MOOC courses. 1,750 MOOCs courses have been completed by our students. And the feedback that we are seeing from the students, very, very high level, because these are very high quality courses that eminent teachers around the world have created, and our students are learning from them, and they're learning by themselves. And that was a very, very successful initiative. We are very happy about that. We also were concerned about online courses that we started from June 8, and we have been keeping a close watch. We did a survey recently to ask the instructors, what is the level of attendance? And 74% courses have more than 80% attendance in the classroom, which is very, very interesting, which is very good. 80% of the instructors found that the students are interactive and engaged in online classes. 85% of our teachers said that they are satisfied with the online classes. When we did the same survey with the students, 83% of the students said that they are able to submit the assignments. Again, not bad considering that they're sitting in remote areas all over the places. And 58% of the students found that the classes were interactive and engaging. So we believe that our faculty have been able to do a decent job of the online courses thanks to the preparation that they had time for. And I think that will be a very valuable lesson for us as we go forward. We also realized that the graduating students would have challenges with their admissions, with their jobs. The companies might delay their joining. The American universities, the European universities where they are going for higher studies, or even Indian universities, they might delay their admissions. And therefore, we created a program where we said our own graduates, we will give them a direct admission to a one-year postgraduate diploma so that they could be comfortable studying here for one full year and decide future course of action. If they decide to then further study at IIT Gandhinagar, we will transfer those credits. Otherwise, we will give them a diploma and they can go wherever. We created a research fellowship for our own students. Somebody who is research oriented can work with the faculty of the institute and earn some stipend, but doing some high quality research. And those students who would have gone to corporate jobs, we created a junior fellowship in leadership where they could help our leadership team, the deans, the heads in running the institute and learning leadership in the process. We were very conscious that the safety and well-being in these times is going to be the main agenda. In fact, when I addressed the students in March, they were surprised when I started saying that I used to always tell you students first, and today I am changing that. And they were anticipating what am I going to say. And I said, from today, for the time being, students first is replaced by safety first. Safety is the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. We created a crisis management group consisting of 3 faculty members, 2 staff members. We gave them the task of looking at all the possibilities of issues and solutions and work with the various units of the institute. We created a control room in the hostels. So this is the picture of a control room in the hostel where a 24/7 control room was managed entirely by the students. So anybody having any issues can just call control room, ask for any help. For example, we would receive calls from the construction workers colony if there is a problem, because we publicize these numbers very widely. We also created a special volunteer force under the leadership of a young assistant professor, somebody who was less than 1 year in IIT Gandhinagar as a young assistant professor. We challenged him to lead a special volunteer force. And the idea of assigning this to a young assistant professor less than 1 year old was to give a message that this is a truly volunteer effort. This is not top heavy. This is not seasoned administrators who are doing it. And we unleashed a lot of volunteering activity in the campus. As a result, the spouses, the faculty, the staff, the students, they were able to engage in volunteering activity. What you see here is a picture that I showed you earlier as well. This is a picture of a DMart, of a what you call this is a supermarket. They were able to negotiate with DMart to say that you bring your groceries, atta, chawal, toothpaste, shampoo, whatever. You bring the entire groceries to the campus from morning till evening, and people will be able to replenish their requirements for rations, for toiletries, for whatever. They did that twice. This is how the volunteerism can actually unleash tremendous energy. We also had these volunteers bring in the vegetable vendors from city, fruit vendors from the city, and make sure that the community is comfortable. As we were one day looking at the vegetables situation, and we realized how important vegetables are, which we don't think of during peace times. Our organic farm group said it will be nice if a lot more people start to do kitchen garden. And they sent out an email to the residents saying that if you want to grow vegetables in your kitchen garden, we will support you, we will help you. And 100 families signed up for kitchen garden during the lockdown period. And very proud to say today that many of them are not only eating the vegetables coming out of their kitchen garden, but once in a while I see a message where somebody sends a message saying, I have too much of this vegetable in my kitchen garden. Anybody wants, just send me a private message and collect some vegetables from my house. So these are some things that really came out very well during the lockdown period. We also created a Shramik Kalyan Samiti, and I gave them a budget. Uh, and I said, you will work with the construction workers. We had about 900 construction workers during lockdown in 6 labor colonies. The actual labor numbers were much higher, but because of the holy vacation, many of them had gone home, but 900 were still in the 6 labor colonies. And they are the weakest link in the whole community. And our concern was that if something goes wrong, because they were not able to work during that time, there were anxieties, they were away from their families, and they were also having perhaps certain other resource problems. And this group of volunteers, of faculty, staff, and students, they were charged to work with the construction workers to make sure that they are comfortable, provide them whatever relief was needed, and they did a fantastic job. Similarly, we had 2 neighboring villages, Basan and Palaj villages, and we said there will be some underprivileged families which will need help because the bread earner would have lost his daily wages and would not be able to earn money. We created a Padosi Gram Sahyog Samiti, gave them a budget, and they went around distributing the rations, the rice, the atta, the oil, face masks, and things like that. And the idea was to be good neighbors, to show to the 2 neighboring villages that we are with you in difficult times. So these are some of the things that we did, and they reflect from what I explained to you earlier about IIT Gandhinagar, what we are, and what I'm going to now share with you is how I see the future of education as far as IIT Gandhinagar is concerned. To my mind, the curriculum would go through a major change, or should go through a major change. We cannot be living in the same times that we used to live. The digital has to augment now the physical classroom. We now have learned a very important platform of digital for teaching and collaboration. We have a huge mindset shift where faculty and students are quite accepting the online teaching. This wasn't possible under peace times, and this is a great benefit, I would say, out of the crisis that has come. And we all educationists have been preaching learning to learn as the key attribute of any university, but it is always very hard to practice it. And I think when students start to do MOOCs courses, they start to do online courses, I think learning to learn will get more emphasis. The academic programs have a lot of potential. For example, I'm imagining IIT Gandhinagar giving admission letter to a student and saying, before you come to IIT Gandhinagar, you are encouraged to do this MOOC courses. And if you do this MOOC courses successfully, we will let you study higher level of the course here. So suppose we are talking about computer programming. Imagine now a student comes to us and the first day says, I have already done this MOOC courses. We can now put him in a higher level of programming class rather than the ordinary programming class. We think that the universities will be able to give a lot more variety, a lot more depth, a lot more breadth to their curriculum using MOOCs. The regular classes will have certain elements of online classes, and even the students can create content now. They can start to contribute to creating the content through online discussions and various other things. We think that there is a huge potential now to use remote faculty. We at IIT Gandhinagar get a lot of visiting faculty from America, from Europe, from elsewhere. Some of them come for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Now imagine somebody coming and teaching 2 weeks, 3 weeks physically and remaining semester teaching online. I think the range of courses that we will be able to teach to our students is significantly going to be better tomorrow than what it was yesterday. That is something, the range, the expertise, the diversity that we will be able to teach our students will be much, much more. Not only that, we will be able to perhaps have a professor of IIT Gandhinagar, a professor of a university overseas or in India, and students of the 2 sides. all learning together, teaching together. The new workplace is going to be complicated. The world is getting complex, challenging. Leadership, communication, life skills are going to be the most important attribute in the new workforce. And we believe that the programs like Foundation Program, Explorer Fellowship, those will really help young people to adapt to the new environment that the world will have. The placement is another interesting opportunity, we feel. We are a very small school. We are very, very tiny school compared to our older IITs, and therefore many employers would find it very hard to travel to Ahmedabad to meet our students, recruit them. But now that everybody has learned that online can be a very powerful tool for everything, we are imagining now that these same employers would be very, very happy to look at our students online, recruit them online, and it will really open more opportunities for recruitment. I think the biggest opportunity that I see for IIT Gandhinagar and perhaps for other institutions is to recruit outstanding faculty. As you know, that in American universities, there is a financial crisis, there is a pretty tightening of the faculty recruitment. So the opportunities are declining in the US. So some of our best Indians who were potentially looking for a position in American universities, they could become available to us for faculty positions. And we are now much more comfortable online interviews, online processes, and I think there is a opportunity here. The other thing, as I mentioned to you, the social consciousness. I think this one of the crisis, the benefits of this crisis has been the extreme sensitivity that the country has developed about migrant workers, about underprivileged people. People have learned how important the domestic maids are to their living, which otherwise they were taking for granted. I think society is going to be a lot more humane, a lot more empathetic. And I think programs like NYASA and NEEV that IIT Gandhinagar has would have a lot more place in the universities to sensitize their students to the societal needs. And this is my final slide. I think there is a huge competitive advantage to the IIT system as a result of this crisis. We don't depend on the tuition fee as much as the American universities do. Tuition fee is not as much part of our budget as even the private universities in India do. And that is a great advantage to us in today's time, because I know I read a lot of stuff that how American universities are worried about the loss of revenue from tuition. We don't have that problem as much. The online has allowed us to realize that a lot more collaboration is possible, a lot more global exchanges are possible. So far, we were constrained about somebody flying for 10 hours or 20 hours to come to visit us. Now we can literally have them participate with us online. And I think this will also expand our global footprint, because we could be streaming our lectures, our seminars for the global audiences. So far, we were pretty confined to our campuses. So these are some of the thoughts that I have about how this post-COVID situation will change the universities or the IITs. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be happy to provide any clarifications or answer any questions.
So thank you, Professor Jain. I think there are a lot of questions, so we're going to pick them up one by one. But I think the main point that you made is really fascinating, that while most people see COVID as a challenge and probably a big crisis to be dealt with, you turn that into quite an opportunity in terms of recruiting students, in terms of, I think, even changing this mindset about all education being face-to-face and so on. You also mentioned something very interesting, which you said that 83% of the students were able to submit assignments on time. And one of the questions that has come up, and I think that's what we always talk about, the IT infrastructure in non-urban areas is not so good. And so are you doing anything to facilitate these students who are in remote areas?
So our survey showed that about 7.5% of our students have severe handicap of either the data or the device. We have, I think, engaged with the students. I think engagement is the first step that really makes a difference, because it boosts the morale of the student. But right now, what my team is doing is reaching out to the students who need financial help. And our intent is that next semester is most likely to be an online semester. And we intend to provide certain financial help to those students who are needing financial help to be able to cope with the online education.
But what if you can't access the net? I mean, financial help might not be enough.
There will be a very small fraction of students who would have that disadvantage. And I believe that we have mechanisms to help those students, but those will be very few. And we must find other ways to help them do the extra classes, do the extra courses, um, you know, float a course for them and things like that. There could be ways to support such students.
Okay, so you know, one of the other questions that came up, and I think everybody is asking this, post-COVID, when you open up, do you have a plan for opening up, and how will that happen?
So, just as I speak to you, we have about 25% students already in the hostels. Okay, we every day are receiving a few emails from our PhD students and finally a master's student saying that, look, my work is suffering because of laboratory, it is laboratory dependent and all that stuff. So on a case by case basis, we let certain students come back and we give them 14 days of quarantine in one of the hostels. And after that, they are allowed to work in the laboratory. So in a very controlled manner, we are letting a few students come back for research.
So how do you also control this connection between the students and the community? And I'm not referring to the community in your campus, but Ahmedabad, of course, is not doing so well on this counter here. So how do you manage that?
See, this is where student leadership comes in picture, right? As I'm very fond of saying that my student leaders have never let me down because the trust that you place on them. See, young people, one of my favorite statements in IIT Gandhinagar is that we older generation always underestimate the younger generation. You know, as parents, we always worry about our children. But the fact is that younger generation always does better than older generations. And therefore, our basic premise is that younger faculty, younger students should be trusted much more than we typically do. And I have never had student leadership. You know, if there is a problem in the hostels, if there is a problem in the student body, either I or dean of student or appropriate person would talk to the student leaders and say, look, this is a problem. Will you solve it? They say, yes, we will solve it, because they know that if they don't solve it, we will solve it. And if we solve it, that's not a nice way. They don't want to lose their autonomy, right? Some years back, we had a lot of motorcycles in the hostels. And we thought that is creating a lot of problem. We called the student leadership and we said, look, we don't want students to be holding motorcycles. A lot of argument. We let that argument continue for months together. And once they were convinced, we gave them again many, many months. We said, you do it your way, because they know how to do things their way. And we had no agitation, we had no unhappiness, and all the motorcycles disappeared.
But now you have a whole new range of problems, isn't it? Yeah. Student evaluation, parity, yeah. And students must be very concerned. So there is already a stress of being in a COVID situation. Yeah. Then there's a stress of online learning. Yeah. And then there's a stress of how are you going to be evaluated? Your places are very, competitive. How do you deal with that?
So for example, the faculty is new to online teaching, student is new to online teaching, right? So that's one thing. So what we decided was that for the spring semester, the semester that was supposed to finish April, May, we said all the courses will be only pass-fail. All right. Actually, it is not failable. It is pass or it is fail/incomplete, because somebody doesn't have device. So it is incomplete, or somebody fails, it is fail. We don't know to distinguish whether it is fail or incomplete. And whenever the student is able to come physically, they can pass the course by taking the exam. So now we have removed the anxiety about failing, right? Everybody is going to have an opportunity to either pass the course online or later, right? Now in the process, the faculty and students, with no stress on top of their mind, they are able to experiment with evaluation. Now they're able to work on quizzes. See, a lot of times things don't work because we are worried. We have some bug in our mind. We think that it is unfair to me. We think that something will go wrong. Now, the moment you remove that fear and we give them freedom, I think they do much better. The fact that we give a lot of autonomy to our faculty, we say to faculty, you do evaluation as you deem appropriate. You can do the viva, you can do the homework, you can do the term paper, you can do a combination thereof, you can do quizzes, exams. Anything you do, we will honor it. We give a lot of trust and a lot of autonomy.
One of the challenges of giving autonomy and freedom, I think that's really required in this context, and you de-stress the students and faculty quite a bit. But one of the challenges coming back to the normal. At the end of the day, IITs are respected for the very high level of rigor in the evaluation. And just my question to you. So would you have some challenges in kind of reversing the clock a little bit, going back to a conventional evaluation system?
I will say that such things are best done by individual faculty members uh, if you can maintain a very high level of ethical environment. Right? Some years back, a gentleman, I asked, would you come and teach here for a semester? He said, I can teach, but I have one condition. I will not conduct an exam. And we are talking about control theory course. You know, it's a mechanical engineering hardcore course. So I said, how would you evaluate the student? He said, I will go to the student's room in the hostel. I will interview him for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour. And I will tell him, you get a C grade or B grade. And if the student wants to further improve his knowledge, I will go again to his hostel room. And I will keep going to him till he says, I cannot learn anymore. And I will give him the grade. I said, fine, we are game for it, right? Now, the point is that if you can trust the faculty, if the students trust the faculty, I think all of that can be taken care of. I think what is really very important, what Indian academia doesn't talk much about, is the culture. We quite often talk about the quality of faculty, we talk about funding, we talk about equipment, we don't talk about culture. To my mind, the culture is the most important element if you want to be a good university. And I believe that in IIT Gandhinagar, we have been able to create that trust, faculty versus administration, staff versus faculty, students versus faculty. And that trust is the basic underpinning of what we do.
And I guess in a crisis situation, that trust really drives, good action and great success.
Absolutely.
So I was just wondering, you have actually talked about several innovations in the learning space by way of introduction of MOOCs, by changing the evaluation, by changing the way classes are structured, by enabling students and faculty. And all of these are, I think, very valuable in the post-COVID world. Do you have any other advice that you would give for people who are struggling? And I think we have to accept that most institutions in this country don't have the credibility that IITs have, don't have the resources that IITs have, not even the faculty strength. And so it's a different world out there. So maybe a lot of this community that's listening to you is the IIT crowd, but there's a whole world out there, right? What advice would you give for, say, mid-range school that doesn't have a lot of the resources and advantages that you have?
I would say that the faculty and students, if they know that administration cares, I think that is important. Right? If I were to tell my faculty, go and do it, and if you have any problem, that's your problem, not my problem. That doesn't work. But if I tell them, look, I want you to teach online, please tell me what are your problems, and we will help resolve those. Right? So my deans, for example, used April and May to spend a lot of time preparing different types of hardware, different type of software. They procured iPads, for example, for faculty who wanted to use iPads for teaching, for example, things like that. So I think if administration shows that they care, I think faculty and students would really embrace change much more easily.
So, I'm wondering, sorry to interrupt you, because, I was just talking to someone who's connected with a very well-known university, quite a big university. And they said they're not private university. And, private universities depend on student fees in Bangalore. And they said the applications reduced by an astounding 90%. Of course, I'm sure that must be a temporary blip. But it's true that revenues are going to fall, not for institutions such as IITs or the top institutions, but it's going to fall for others. And how do you suggest that they manage these challenges?
See, this revenue tuition fee based revenue is going to be a big problem for many, many universities in India and outside. Right? You come from a business school, and I'm sure that people talk in all the time that companies that have a strong balance sheet, even if their profit and loss statement is bad, they will survive because of strong balance sheet, that they don't have debt, they have cash. I would say same thing happens with universities. I think the model that Indian universities have has to change. We have to have a balance sheet. We have to have an endowment. We have to have reserves, cash reserves, right? In the absence of this cash reserve, they are going to go through similar crisis as many companies would, because they have a lot of loans and debt, and the sales will go down, the production will go down. It is the same problem with the universities. The model that Americans have perfected, where private universities are able to raise a lot of endowment funds, and they are pretty cash rich. I think that model our private universities have to go, where their alumni, their well-wishers, they have to put in money, which is available not only for operating expenses, but which is also very critical for difficult and surprising times like this.
Yeah, I think you have been very successful in doing that. And so maybe many people would be interested in what you specifically did to actually motivate people. Uh, you know, Indians are very good in philanthropy, but not so much in giving back to the academic institutions. I think that's generally the reality, unfortunately. But that brings me to another thing, which is all these innovations, and now people are getting used to a new way of learning and a new way of teaching. And so there were some questions, so if this is the new normal and people get used to it, then will the relevance of the university or this large campus, big infrastructure, will all that be challenged? Do we need such infrastructure to provide excellent education? I mean, let's not limit to the infrastructure. I'm just saying, if classes can go online, then can we have a less capital intensive model of higher education?
I don't think so. I think the students don't learn only physics, or they don't learn only finance. I think they learn a lot of values. They learn a lot of skills, people skills, life skills, by interacting with each other, by working with their professors. Uh, you know, I meet my students whom I may have taught 25 years back, 30 years back, 35 years back. They don't remember the civil engineering I taught, but they remember the story I told in the class. Right? They will come and meet me and say, you told that story in the classroom one day, and that I remember, it has benefited. So I think people learn a lot more than just physics or electrical engineering when they come to college. And therefore, the campuses like us will remain very, very relevant, especially if you want to produce leadership. If you really want to do a skill development, you just want to create a programmer who will just be able to program. Perhaps somebody can learn programming on MOOCs. But if you want this programmer to be able to deal with clients, to be able to deal with the team, to be able to negotiate a deal, I think he needs a lot more skills than just programming.
No, I completely agree with you, because one of the things that we always talk about is learning is social, and you remove students, and the learning happens in a physical space, the social part, despite having all this social media around. And I think this should really reassure a lot of faculty who think that digital is out to replace them and their institutions. So thank you so much for reinforcing that. But one of the things I was, this is again a question that came up, is post-COVID, the rules of the game change. For instance, social distancing. Now, our classrooms cannot really be physically structured the way they are. And so on. So how do you propose to deal with that? Because you will have the students and you have the classrooms set up to accommodate a certain number. And how do you manage all these additionalities?
See, there are two types of things here, right? One is that the classroom that was accommodating 120 students is now going to accommodate only 40 students, so 30 students, right? That is one problem. My guess is that we will have to spend extra effort in scheduling the classes, in breaking large classes into smaller classes. And all of that will have to be done by the universities. And if your faculty is aligned with you, if faculty is part of the decision making, they will do it much more easily. If it is going to come from the top and somebody will tell the faculty do it, it doesn't work well. So my guess is that this is a problem that students and faculty have to sit together and solve. And I believe that this is something that can be solved. It will take extra effort. Nothing will come free. There will be some extra effort that will be needed. Maybe people will have to teach more Maybe there will be parallel classes that will have to be done. Maybe the classes will have to be done early in the morning or late in the evening. There will be some adjustments that people will have to do. But in the interest of safety, I think those things will need to be done.
So that's interesting, because one of the models that we discuss often is, if it's a fully residential campus, the class can be, some students can be sitting in the class and some can be in the classroom, and we can swap those groups back and forth. So everybody gets at least 50% of the time face-to-face time. That may be one model to look at. The other question that came up, and I think it's a very relevant question, these are trying times and everybody's under stress. And people do tend to get demotivated, especially graduating students, because they're looking at new opportunities and so on. I know you mentioned about providing opportunities within the campus, but they might want to look at opportunities outside. These are also trying times for faculty. So as a director, as the head of this institution, how do you keep people motivated?
I think communication. I think it is all about communication. If somebody feels that somebody cares, I think that is what is important. Recently for example, we have no COVID cases inside the campus. Okay, we have 1,000 family members in the housing area. We have 500 students in the hostel area, and we have fortunately so far no COVID cases. But we said we can get into that situation. So we created, for example, a 16-bed facility with oxygen, with all the medical supplies, so that we said up to moderate cases we can handle inside the campus. We signed up with an arrangement with the top 3 hospitals in Ahmedabad, so that with the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, so that we can send our serious cases there. And we created the whole infrastructure well before the crisis happens. So today I have an officer in IIT Gandhinagar who knows how many beds are available in each of these 3 hospitals, how many ventilators are available in each of these 3 hospitals. My officer knows that every day. That data comes to him. Now, when people see that as an administration, you care for them and you are engaged in finding solutions to the unknown problems that might come, I think they feel more comfortable, and they are also happy to contribute to the solution. I think it's all about, like in lockdown period, we were able to get them vegetables and fruits and toothpaste and everything inside the campus. Our student volunteers said to everybody, anybody who has a problem, senior citizens, others, you tell us, we will bring the groceries to your home, we will bring medicines to your home. Somebody says, look, my cell phone ka battery down. Somebody's battery went fat during crisis, right? They locked down. The whole thing is locked down. And they call the control room and say, look, my battery is down and I need cell phone. I said, okay, we will solve it. You have unleashed a lot of young students and young staff, young faculty, young spouses. They will find solutions. I think the trick in this whole thing is to trust your people, empower them.
I love the way you put it: trust, empower, and communicate extensively. But the one part that you said, but you didn't explicitly say, is meticulous planning at the back end and implementation, which you have done actually by connecting with the hospitals and mapping availability and having a kind of a protocol for dealing with an actual crisis if it arises. So that's really fascinating. I want to shift this conversation a little bit away because we have only a few minutes left. And there were some broader questions that people have asked. And I'm going to, that's not directly connected to COVID, but, and I think it's useful to, look at this. One is the question that came up when you made the first part of the presentation. Could you tell us which specific areas are the differentiators of IIT Gandhinagar in the research space? And especially, does it have a connection with the heritage and culture of?
So we have several very interesting areas that we have done well. Culture and heritage, for example, we are very passionate about archaeological sciences. So we have a center for archaeological sciences. And similarly, we have courses on Indian knowledge systems. We have people who will talk about classical Indian literature and things like that. So we have a fairly strong, we teach Sanskrit, we teach Urdu, we teach ancient Indian history, things like that. So I think we have a very strong commitment to those areas. We also do very good quality work in several areas, including cognitive science, for example. We were the first IIT to start a formal academic program in cognitive science. Now, a couple of other IITs have started it. Our students from cognitive science has gone on to do extremely well. And, there could be many other safety engineering, fire safety. We are the only institution or the laboratory in the country to have a 3-story full-scale fire test facility. We put the whole building to fire. So you can literally test your solutions, the building facades, the building fire suppression system, the fire, any other facility. You can literally come to IIT Gandhinagar and install those things in our 3-story full-scale test facility. And we will put the building to fire. After some time, the fire brigade will actually douse the fire, and and then that building will look pretty bad, all burnt out, and then we will again restore it for the next experiment. So we have done some very good work in many areas.
So my final question to you, it's a summary of many questions people have asked. If you were to look into the crystal ball, what would be your top 3 or 4 predictions for educational sector in the post-COVID world?
I would say that more than post-COVID world, I think India has a crisis of education. We, right from primary education to university education, are micromanaging our education. And we need to loosen that control. We need to let people work on the education and empower them. And I think if you do that, then post-COVID world will reward you very well. Because in post-COVID world, the education is going to be more and more autonomous and less centralized. And that is where I see IIT Gandhinagar having a huge advantage. Because to begin with, we were very decentralized with a lot of autonomy to the students, a lot of autonomy to the faculty. And we think that post-COVID world will give us, therefore, additional benefits. And I would say that same thing we need to think about if you look at Indian education. More autonomy, more accountability. Autonomy doesn't work without accountability, of course. And more trust, and people will deliver.
So thank you, Professor Jain. I think this has been a fascinating conversation. Right from the time you started out with the establishment of the IIT Gandhinagar, and how you built it up into the profile that it has today, the ranking, I think it has jumped very rapidly on the rankings, even though you said ranking was not important to you. You do have a great faculty body, you have a great campus, and you've managed this transition. From what you've said, it appears to be exceptionally well in the COVID scenario. Thank you so much for sharing your leadership insights with us. And I'm going to hand you over now to Dr. Sushila, who will continue with this. Thank you. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. And it's been a great pleasure from my side, taking these questions on behalf of the participants and then presenting them to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Professor Jain and Professor Jose. Indeed, this was a very nice presentation and a very fascinating look into IIT Gandhinagar and the kind of innovations that are happening right here in India. Professor Jose, you did a fantastic job of that. That conversation was really very fascinating and interesting. So, you talked about, Professor Jain, you said that basically digital is kind of here to stay, and in a sense, digital will augment the physical. You also said that the physical has to be there. It's not going to go away, because what we are doing is not creating engineers in a particular discipline, but fully rounded individuals who are really going to go out there and make a difference. Because especially when you add in the layer of sensitivity, a good understanding of the reality that our country faces and the kind of issues that we face, that whole story ties in very nicely and clearly speaks to how we're going to create a new generation of very successful leaders in this country. You mentioned that innovation at the end of the day is about solving problems, and again, to solve problems, we do need the whole interdisciplinary kind of way of working, as well as the thinking that comes from not just engineering sciences, but also the social sciences and bearing that they bring in to the way we look at problems. You also said something that is really nice, which is while we are all looking at this whole COVID situation as a big disaster, and obviously it has had its negative impact, you've also seen the positive side of it. You've seen the opportunity, and you recognize that you can now have global faculty teaching students of IIT Gandhinagar, and you can also have students drawn from across the world, and they don't need to come here to learn from faculty who are in IIT Gandhinagar. So this has been very interesting, and I must thank you for taking the time to be with us today, talking us through where education is going, and where we potentially are going to see changes, hopefully in the coming years. And finally, you also talked about how important it is to create a culture of trust and caring, and basically nurturing, which is where the best learning can happen, and how you can do that even though you are doing it remotely, not just physically. So thank you very much. This was very nice and interesting, very valuable discussion indeed. Thank you, Professor Jose, for being part of this. Our audience, thank you very much for participating, asking your questions.